My babysitter got arrested at my house. Trust me when I say this, it made no sense why she got arrested, but I remember panicking and it was just not it. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba and welcome back to an insane story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in middle school, and funny enough, this was back when I was actually in grade 6. Yeah, in grade 6, I was just starting middle school and I didn't really pull girls at this time. I was more known for just playing video games and sitting in my room and, well, just learning how to beat my eggplant. But honestly, trust me when I say this, I was hitting puberty. And I remember back when I was in grade 6, one thing I found really cool was girls that were more in the darker side of things. I think many people understand the term bad girls and how they like bad girls. And I remember me back when I was in grade 6, I thought bad girls were cool. Like, for example, girls that would, yell on Call of Duty and, be basically swearing at other people. I found that kind of attractive. I don't know why. Maybe I was just being a weird kid back then, but I don't know. It's just something that was a part of me, I guess. I remember one time back when I was in grade 6, I was heading home from school and I was actually heading home with a group of friends. Now, me and my group of friends, we were all, massive gamers. We all really didn't focus on girls at the time. So I remember all of us, we'd actually decide to head over back to my place and basically all play a new game that released on the Wii U. If you guys don't know, the Wii U was released back when I was in grade 6, and honestly, everyone loved it. And I remember, especially me, being in grade 6, I thought the Wii U was something insane. Obviously, now it's considered one of the worst consoles ever, but I remember there was one game on there that a lot of us all played, and it was Smash Bros. And me and my friends, we loved playing Smash Bros. I know that sounds weird for me saying Smash Bros in the same sentence and not making it sus, but at the same time, just hear me out. Anyways, I remember when we all walked through my front door and went straight to my Wii U to play Smash Brothers, my mom ended up coming up to me and saying, "Bubba, can I pull you aside for a second?" Yeah, mom, what's up? Bubba, me and your dad are leaving for a bit. What time are your friends planning on leaving? They're probably gonna leave like an hour or two. We're just gonna play a couple rounds. Why? Okay, well, after they leave, your babysitter's gonna be here right away, and we're leaving right now. Wait, why are you guys leaving right now? Is it an emergency? Yes, it's a big emergency, and we just need to leave. At this time, I guess some family stuff was going on, and my parents, since I was really young, they didn't want me to get familiar with it, because obviously they just want me to be a happy kid like usual. And I remember I ended up going up to my friends saying how they had to leave a bit sooner and all this stuff, and basically after like the 1 hour mark of us playing games, we hear a doorbell ring. Now, when we heard this doorbell ring, me and all the guys, we all ended up basically thinking it was one of the parents, so we all headed straight for the door to basically get my friends picked up and head home. But right as we answer the door, I am not joking when I say this, we see a girl in all black looking like a goth girl basically walk into my house. Now, all my friends were ultimately terrified, but me, I'm not gonna lie to you, I found her somewhat hot. I don't know why. It was really weird for me to think that, but at the same time, like I said earlier, I think I had like a thing for bad girls back then. And going on with the story, I remember basically she walked in and said, okay, the parents said there was only supposed to be one kid here. Why are there like 5 of you? Oh, I'm the kid you're supposed to be taken care of. Sorry, my friends were just over. Tell them to leave right now. I remember when she said that, all my friends just instantly headed for the door. And I'm not gonna lie to you, this new babysitter was becoming the boss of the house. Me, at this time, I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't want to disobey her because this girl looked like she would actually punch a child. Like, I am not joking when I say this. I should not be saying this. YouTube, don't demonetize this when I say this. But this girl looks like she would harm children. So I remember I started kind of like panicking and all my friends left, and me, I instantly went upstairs and basically started hiding in my bedroom because I didn't know what this babysitter was gonna do to me. She was terrifying. But obviously this babysitter ended up actually coming up the stairs and looking at me saying, "Why are you hiding? Come downstairs right now. I'm just gonna feed you something real quick, you little rat." Rat? Little rat? Wait, just because I'm hiding under my bed, it doesn't make me a rat, is what I told her afterwards. And yeah, no, she didn't like that. She ended up grabbing me by the wrist and actually dragging me downstairs and made me sit in the kitchen table and basically made me wait as she was making the dinner for me. It blew my mind how some people, even though they really hate children, want to be babysitters. Like, are you that desperate for money that you want to take care of me and treat me like garbage but still take my parents' money? So I ultimately start panicking and I start worrying, and honestly, the more and more I stressed out, I didn't know what in the world was going on. Anyways, I remember basically this babysitter ended up feeding me, and I will say this, she ended up sitting down right in front of me, and all she did was go on her phone. She went on her phone and stuff, and then she ended up getting a phone call. Now, I'm gonna say this, when your ringtone is something from AC/DC, especially TNT, it's actually kind of terrifying. But basically, I remember this babysitter got a phone call, and out of nowhere, she ended up getting up and basically walking away saying, "Yeah, are you like bringing the stash here? Like, hurry up." Now, when she said stash, the only stash I've ever heard of back when I was in grade 6 was either pubic stash or mustache. So the fact that she said stash made me worry because I didn't know what that was. And I think I've played enough Call of Duty to understand that stashes are usually not a good thing unless it's ammo for a reload. So I started panicking, and at the the same time, I really wanted to get a hold of my parents. I remember I ended up basically leaving the dinner table as she was away from the table as well on the phone call, and I started heading upstairs to my bedroom. When I got there, I instantly pulled out my iPad and I basically started like, trying to message my mom over iMessage. But right away, right as I was on my iPad messaging my mom, this babysitter ends up walking in saying, "Where'd you go? Why'd you leave like that? Who do you think you are?" I'm just, texting my friends. She grabs my iPad and sees that the top of the message board was mommy, and she says, "Baba, you're not supposed to text your mom. I'm supposed to be taking care of you. I'm supposed to be your new mother. What are you on?" Honestly, this girl did not seem like anything smart or safe whatsoever for, well, a babysitter. But that's not even where things get worse, because I remember what happens next, I gotta say, was super illegal. Because I remember I ended up heading downstairs, and out of nowhere, I ended up hearing someone pull up to my driveway right as I went down the steps. I ended up kind of like trying to figure out and look through the front door window to see who it was. But out of nowhere, I remember my babysitter ends up grabbing me by the neck and looks at me and says, "Baba, I'm gonna actually need you to go back upstairs to your room. You want me to go to my room again? Yeah, just go up to your room for like 5 minutes. Trust me, it won't be anything." I ended up going upstairs, and right away, I ended up seeing from my front window of my bedroom that someone was in like a really like black scary car that was like all tinted out. And basically a person came out that had like tattoos all over his arms. He wasn't like jacked or anything. It was just a skinny guy with tattoos. Ended up walking up to my front of my house and dropping something off and leaving right away. I started panicking, thinking, yo, what is going on in my house right now? Like, where did my parents get this babysitter? And then that's when it happened. I remember the babysitter ended up calling me downstairs saying, "Bubba, come down right now, you little rat." And I ended up heading downstairs, and when I got there, she was holding a bag of sugar. I'm not gonna say exactly what, because YouTube monetization, but if you guys don't know what the devil's sugar is, then you're probably too young to be watching this channel. I remember from there, I basically ended up like, following her around the house and stuff, and she ended up taking this bag to a bathroom, and then she ended up coming out with the bag being gone. At this point, I went to the bathroom right after her, and I saw that my bathroom counter, well, I'm gonna say this, it was a little dirty with some white stuff on it that let's just say, don't want to get into because YouTube monetization, but let's just say, yes, there was some sort of substance in my house. Now, I didn't know anything about, substances and all the bad stuff back when I was a kid, but out of nowhere, I remember watching my babysitter, and she seemed like she was more energized than she usually was, and she had a bigger smile on her face for some reason. I found this very odd and stuff, but honestly, I just kind of like decided just to obey her because I didn't know what was gonna happen. At this point, I felt super unsafe in my own house, and no kid should ever have to feel like that. Going on with the story, I remember right after that whole situation happened, I ended up sitting down in my living room, and me and her, we actually ended up watching a movie together. Obviously, I wanted to watch some action movie that was super cool, probably like James Bond or something, but she wanted to watch a horror movie. And I'm gonna tell you one thing, in my house, we were not allowed to watch horror movies, but the fact that this girl wanted to, my babysitter, my mind was blown. I remember me and her were watching this movie together, and we were watching this horror movie, and out of nowhere, the most craziest thing happened where I ended up hearing a hard knock on the door. Like, it sounded like a very serious knock that only an angry person would. And me at this time, I started getting terrified because one, I just watched a horror movie about a bunch of people getting like, murdered in a house. And two, I was thinking that probably the guy that was here earlier, the big, scary, tall, Slenderman, tattooed looking dude, was going to come and basically was going to, break in my house. So I started panicking even more, and I started actually running upstairs and hiding into my bedroom. And right as you know it, I ended up hearing cop sirens turn on right as they were knocking. Now, I recognize cop sirens from anywhere. Back when I was a kid, I played Grand Theft Auto 5. So instantly at that moment, I was like, you know what? I'm safe. The police are here. I ended up opening my front door. And when I opened it, I saw cops swarming in, and all of them I thought were after me. So I put my hands up and went on my knees right away. And the only reason I went on my knees was because in Grand Theft Auto, they always tell you to go on your knees. But they ended up all passing me and looking at me really weirdly and ended up arresting my babysitter. I have no idea why. I was so weirded out and trying to figure out what was going on. But my babysitter got arrested and basically ended up getting escorted out of the house. And I remember one of the cops came up to me and asked, "Hey son, where's your parents at?" "My parents aren't here. They left me with the babysitter that's in handcuffs right now." "Well, your babysitter's done some very bad things, making deals of bad things. So either you call a parent that can come take care of you, or we will drop you off anywhere you like." When they said drop me off wherever I liked, I ended up driving over to my friend's house and explaining to his parents the whole situation. And yeah, let's just say my parents got a big talking to about hiring the right babysitter. But at the same time, what can I say? My babysitter literally got arrested. Like, what was I supposed to do? Honestly, the only thing I was supposed to do at that time, I feel like, was fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. I remember when I was a kid, I actually ended up going to jail. And the way this ended up happening was not the smartest thing in the world, but I will say this, prison is not fun, especially when you're only 16. But before we get into this story, make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do this, and also changes my life for the better. But other than that, let's just jump jump straight into this insane story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a really embarrassing story time. So today's story all takes place back in my high school year and when I was only 15. Yeah, I was 15 years old, turning 16 around this time, and let's just say I wasn't the smartest kid ever. Yes, I was young and charming and handsome, and I still am to this day, but the main thing was that back when I was in high school, I was a total player, meaning that if there was a girl in my vicinity that I thought was attractive, chances were that I was gonna go to her and try to rizz her up. And I remember one time when I was in high school, there was a girl that I was always kind of interested in, but at the same time never went to, because she was always jumping from relationship to relationship, and it kind of seemed like that this girl was always never able to be single. But I remember there was one time where my buddy walked up to me and he told me, yo, Bubba, you know the girl that you've been like kind of like staring at throughout school? Yeah, what about her? You know she's actually like single now, right? Like she's actually single. I remember when I heard that, I decided right at that moment to sprint for the hallways and go straight to her, because obviously this was my golden opportunity. I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna walk up to her, say I think she's attractive, get her Snapchat, and just instantly rizz her up and then just ask her out right then and there, right at that moment. Was it the smart idea? No, but at the same time, we were in high school. A lot of teenagers, when they're under pressure, they usually just end up saying yes. Not something you should take advantage of, but still. Going on with the story, I remember that's exactly what I did, and I started running down the hallways. I started sprinting towards down the hallway and finding this girl wherever she was at. And I remember she was standing outside her art class, and she was just basically taking a break and just taking a breather, because apparently the classroom smelled like paint all the time, and inhaling paint is never a good thing. I remember when I saw her, I walked up to her and said, hey, what you up to? Oh, nothing, just chilling, just taking a break. What's up? I was just curious, like, what you up to after school today? Nothing. Why? Well, I don't know, like, I always thought you were cute, so like, do you want to like maybe like hang out after school today? She looks at me and starts kind of like giggling and smiling, and she's like, yeah, sure, I don't mind. Okay, cool. Okay, so what's your snap? Here, let me just add you real quick. I ended up adding her on Snapchat, and I also got her phone number, which was also a bonus, can I say? And from there, I ended up heading back to my classroom that I was already in. Once I walked back into my classroom, my friend looked at me and he saw the smile on my face, and he knew that that day was a good day for me, until it really wasn't. Because I remember what ends up happening next was super embarrassing, and I gotta say, put me in jail. I remember after school came, and basically from there, I ended up heading towards the front of the school, and I met up with this girl that I asked out that day. And me and her, we ended up basically walking towards the mall, and once we got there, I remember me and her were just walking around, hanging out, going to different, stores, and basically doing some window shopping. Yes, we were window shopping because as a high schooler, I wasn't rich or didn't have any money at the time to just blow like it was nothing. So yeah, we were basically window shopping and walking around until this girl said, hey, like, is it cool if we go to the food court? I'm kind of hungry. Yeah, sure. What do you feel like eating? I don't know. We'll just see when we get there. I remember when me and her, when we ended up going to the food court, things got really, really bad because I noticed that this girl ended up getting super, super nervous. I didn't know why. And I remember I looked at her and said, hey, like, is everything all right? You seem like kind of nervous and scared. Is something going on? No, nothing's going on. It's just, I saw someone I'm not a fan of. That you're not a fan of? Like, what do you mean? Like an artist, a musician, a YouTuber? Like, what are you not a fan of? And then that's when she kind of like told me not to turn around because her ex-boyfriend was at the mall. Now, guys, I'm going to give a piece of advice before we continue. If the girl you're seeing is exes or anywhere in your vicinity, get them out of there right away. Don't hang out. Don't try to show off. Don't try to be any better, because let's just say it gets worse and worse as you do it. And you guys will see why in this story, because I remember right when she told me that, I decided to be a slayer or a player to the maximum, and I grabbed her by the waist and started walking with her around the food court so this guy would clearly know that this girl was taken. Was this a smart thing to do? Well, no, because I remember what ends up happening next was that this guy kept staring at me and her nonstop, and I could tell that this girl was getting super uncomfortable with what was going on. She wasn't uncomfortable about me putting my arm around her. She was more uncomfortable with the fact that her ex-boyfriend kept staring like he was a hawk trying to hunt his prey. So I remember at that point, I ended up looking at her and saying, yo, like, if you want to get out of here, I don't mind. She ended up shaking her head yes, and as me and her stood up, I instantly started heading towards, the exit for the food court. But at that moment, this ex-boyfriend thought it was a bright idea to walk up to me and say, yo, bro, I see you're hanging out with my sloppy seconds. Dude, are you kidding me? Did you actually just call her sloppy seconds? And I remember this guy ended up walking up to me, pushing his chest onto me, saying, yeah, bro, that's exactly what I said. What are you gonna do about it? And me and him, we ended up jumping into a fight. Yeah, we literally fought in the mall food court. Was it a smart idea? No, but I mean, he was pressing me, so why not? I remember me and him, we started pushing each other. We pushed each other. We started punching each other. I pushed this guy up against the wall and started punching his stomach as much as I could to make him feel kind of winded. But then at that moment, I remember he ended up pushing me back, and he ended up reaching for his pocket, and he pulled out a knife. He pulled out a knife, and I saw it in my vicinity. And at that point, people started freaking out in in the mall. Now, I remember when this person pulled out a knife, I started being like, okay, I gotta do what I gotta do. So I remember he ended up running right towards me with this knife, and I grabbed him by his wrist as fast as I could and slammed it on the table until he dropped the knife. When he dropped the knife, me and him, we ended up going onto the ground and basically like grabbing each other and basically wrestling at that point. And then mall security came, and also cops came out of nowhere. When cops ended up showing up, me and him were separated into separate parts of the food court, and we were getting a talking to. And one of the cops, when he was walking around the food court, instantly he saw that there was a knife on the ground, and he picked it up and said, "Whose knife is this?" I remember at that moment, I instantly pointed at him saying, "Yo, that's his knife. He pulled it out on me." But this other person, which was the ex, ended up looking at me saying, "Nah, bro, like, it's not my knife. It definitely is his." And instantly at that moment, since none of us claimed the knife, he ended up taking us both to jail. Yeah, he actually ended up taking us to jail, and we got banned from the mall for a year. A whole year not allowed going into the mall. But obviously, I ended up breaking that rule because I ended up getting a haircut so I wouldn't look recognizable. But instantly, at that moment, me and him, we ended up getting escorted to the police cars, and we both ended up heading down to the station. So me at this moment, I was obviously panicking and freaking out. And I was thinking, you know what? I'm 15 years old. They're not going to charge me. But at the same time, why would they take me to the police station? It makes no sense. And then afterwards, when we got there, basically me and this guy were put into a separate cell, and we ended up sitting in jail till our parents come to pick us up. Now, the thing that sucked was that both my parents worked at the time. So none of my parents were able to pick me up until like 5 hours later. So I ended up sitting in a jail cell for 5 hours. I was hungry. I was starving. Sitting in a cell made me almost go insane. I felt like I was in a Mr. Beast video trying to figure out what was I going to do with my life and how am I going to occupy myself. Obviously, I had different moments when I was in jail where I ended up doing push-ups, where I ended up basically just staring at the wall, laying down, looking at the roof. And by the way, the bed in the cell was just straight up cement. Like, it wasn't even an actual bed. Like, prison actually just sucks. I remember I got to a point where I ended up seeing, funny enough, the kid that was fighting me getting picked up by his parents, and his parents were really upset at him. But as he was walking past my cell, he ended up seeing me and laughing and kept walking away. And me, I didn't know when my parents were gonna come. I didn't have my phone with me. I didn't have anything with me. I just had, well, I guess me. I was super scared, and I remember I ended up looking around and I asked for a phone call, but sadly that's actually only a thing in movies, funny enough, is what they told me. So I ended up waiting another basically 3 hours. I was in the cell for almost 8 hours. It was late at night, and my dad came and picked me up after he got a call that I was sitting in a prison cell. He ended up picking me up really upset and really just annoyed that I got arrested. But honestly, I wasn't charged for anything, so I mean, he wasn't that mad, I guess, because my whole future wasn't ruined. But he basically told me at that moment, "Bubba, this is why you do smart things in life, not the stupid things." To this day, I still think about how he said that, but honestly, it made me realize that I never want to go to jail. Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's embarrassing story. Make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. I remember when me and this girl got arrested, we ended up going into a prison cell, and let's just say what ended up happening in there was extremely illegal. But I mean, we were already in jail, so... Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another embarrassing but crazy story. Now, this story all takes place back in my grade 10 year, and I'm not gonna lie, my grade 10 year, I was a massive player, and I would basically do anything that walked. I know that sounds really insane, but you gotta understand, I had no standards whatsoever. But I remember one time my grade 10 year, I went to the science class that basically most students would go to. Basic grade 10 science, where you learn about biology, chemistry, you know, all the sciences. And I remember every time I would go and the teacher would take attendance, there was always one person missing in that attendance list. And it was a girl's name that no one knew who she was. No joke, I think she only showed up for like the first day of the semester and then never showed up again. We never understood why. Most of us thought she changed schools, or maybe she just didn't exist, or maybe it was just a prank or someone that was trying to just make us feel like there was a person always missing. But towards the end of the year, that's when things started to change, because finally we ended up putting a name to the face. When the final 2 months of the semester were finally coming, I remember I went inside my science class and sat down with all my friends that were there and seeing since the beginning of the semester. And when the teacher was taking attendance, I remember she ends up saying this girl's name that was usually missing, except this time we ended up hearing a voice going, here. At that moment, when we heard someone say here, we ended up all looking around the classroom, and we were shocked to see that this girl actually existed. She was dressed like a total emo girl, and I remember all of us were totally shocked that she was actually like a living person. But one thing was for sure, at that moment when I saw her with my own 2 eyes, I actually ended up kind of falling for her. I don't know what it was about her. Maybe it was the bad girl vibe she gave me, but I'm not gonna lie, I kind of was into her. So I remember when the bell rang and class finally ended, she was one of the first people to walk out of the classroom. And I remember I ended up following up behind her saying, "Hey, haven't seen you in class before, or ever, I should say. What was your name again? Why do you need to know that?" "Oh, well, because I don't know, I thought you were kind of cute and I just want to know, you know, who you were." "Oh, well, like, I don't think it really matters, but like, here, give me your phone." At that moment, she ended up taking my phone and ended up putting her number in it. And I gotta say, it was definitely one of the easiest numbers I could get. But then afterwards, I remember she ends up handing my phone back to me and saying to me, if you ever like doing fun stuff, just let me know. And then she ends up walking away. At that moment, I obviously knew in my mind that I love doing fun stuff. Hell, one of the main things I like doing that's super fun was the Devil's Tango. So I remember I ended up texting her literally as she was walking away saying, hey, I'm down for some fun, question mark. And at that moment, she was still like down the hallway. So she ends up turning around as she looked at her phone of me texting her. And she's like, okay, well, like, come on, let's go, is what she says literally down the hallway looking at me. So I remember me and her, we ended up leaving after school and we ended up heading out together. Me and her ended up walking towards the park. And at this park, there was a skate park that most kids would hang out at. But this girl apparently knew a lot of people in the skate park that were really sketchy. But I remember as her and I ended up walking up to them in the skate park, they all ended up looking at me as if I was crazy. As if I was crazy for even hanging out with her. But I was super confused on why until I remember one of the guys ended up coming up to me and saying, ah, you got yourself a new victim. Nice. Wait, what? She's not my victim. I know she's not your victim. You're her victim, is what he says. And at that point, I started to get kind of worried. The girl ended up saying to me afterwards, like, oh, like, he's just joking. Don't worry about it. But in reality, he wasn't joking, because what ends up happening next got a little out of hand. Because I remember when everyone started to leave and it started to get dark, me and this girl were still hanging out together. And me thinking that this girl was going to invite me back to her place at some point, she ends up saying to me instead, here, let's go do something fun. Follow me. And then this girl ends up dragging me all the way to the parking lot. Of all places, I don't know how the parking lot was a fun place to hang out at. And there was no way I was going to do it in the parking lot. But then afterwards, I remember this girl ends up looking at me saying, okay, Bubba, out of all the cars in this parking lot, which one do you like the most? At that moment, I remember me and her started to walk around the parking lot talking about cars. And this girl had enough knowledge about cars for some reason, to the point where I ended up seeing a really nice Mustang that I was madly in love with. And I said, oh, like, if I could have any car, I'd probably get that one right there. Oh, like the blue Mustang? Yeah, it's a really nice car. Okay, here, follow me. And at that point, she ends up going right up against the Mustang. And she ends up pulling something out of her purse and somehow unlocking it. At first, I thought it was her car until we sat inside of it and I realized that the alarm was going off. And on top of that, she was opening the bottom of the steering wheel to basically hotwire the car. Yeah, now I started to realize how this girl was known to be really sketchy. And there was no way this girl hasn't ended up being in prison yet. And by yet, I mean really soon. Because I remember once me and her ended up stealing the car, we ended up driving around. And reminder, we were in grade 10 and none of us had our actual full licenses to be driving like that. So obviously, I started to freak out a little and start to worry that this girl might actually kill me. But I remember as me and her were driving, we ended up going around and there was one moment where at a red light, this girl thought it was a good idea to rev the car of the Mustang that she doesn't even own. I don't know why she was revving it, but she was revving it so hard to the point where black smoke started to come out the back of the car. And that's when I heard the one thing I did not need to hear at that moment, and that was sirens. No joke, we ended up hearing a whoop, whoop, and I started to worry. I remember the girl ends up pulling over and she starts panicking and she's like, okay, Bubba, listen to me, okay? I'm gonna do my method. You just act calm and pretend you're not here. Pretend I'm not here. I'm in the passenger seat. And that's when we end up getting a knock on the window. We got a knock on the window and it was the cop that was, well, really annoyed of why we were revving the car. And when we rolled down the window, the first thing he says is, ma'am, can I get your license and registration? Oh, officer, I would, but like, I don't have it on me. And like, I totally forgot it back at home. Honestly, like, this is my first time getting pulled over. I'm so sorry I was revving the car. Like, my little brother was telling me that I should rev it. And honestly, like, I was just so confused. At that moment, she starts bawling her eyes out somehow, which I don't know how girls have that superpower to just cry whenever on command. But I remember I was just looking at her thinking, did this girl just really call me her little brother? Like, I'm half brown. We don't look anything alike. But I remember this officer ends up looking at me and he started to realize that this girl is full of baloney. And that's when he ends up saying, okay, you two out of the car right now. You guys are coming with me. I remember this girl ends up trying to bawl her eyes out even more to make sure the cop like kind of like felt empathy for her. But the cop wasn't taking any of it. And it got to the point where I just got out of the car, put my hands behind my back, and we ended up sitting in the back of his police car and going back to the station with him. When we got to the station, I remember he ended up basically making us wear these orange outfits. And at that moment, I really felt the vibe that this was really bad news. I remember the girl just starts looking at me and she ends up putting away the crying act and just acts all calm about everything as if she's done this before. And I just look at her saying, yo, what are we gonna do to get out of this? I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's not that bad anyway. They put like a mattress in there sometimes. Wait, what? You've been here before? Maybe once or twice. I don't really remember, to be honest. Are you serious right now? Is what I had in my mind going over and over, thinking this was a really bad idea to hang out with this girl in the first place. But then I remember a cop ends up taking me and this girl into a prison cell. And the funniest part was that they ended up putting us both in the same prison cell. I think it's because we were both still high schoolers at the time, so they didn't think it was a big deal. But I remember when we both got put into the same cell and the cop walked away, the girl ends up looking at me and she's like, well, I mean, hey, at least there's a mattress in here. You want to like, you know, have some fun? Yeah, sure. What do you want to do? Here, come here. And at that moment, she ends up coming close to me and we start making out inside the prison cell. To be honest, I was really surprised surprised that this girl was in the mood in the first place. But I remember, since we had a prison sentence of 12 hours, we had a lot of fun in there. No joke, I think we did the Devil's Tango over 20 times until finally the cop ended up coming back and releasing us after 12 hours. And, well, he kind of noticed that my hair and her hair were super messed up, and he kind of put the picture together. But that's when he ended up saying, all right, you two, don't ever steal a car again, you understand? Don't do anything stupid. Next time I'm gonna tell your parents. And he ends up releasing us. I think he was trying to do a scare factor, but honestly, if you guys don't believe the story is real at all, then follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.